Hello, everybody. Today's topic of my presentation will be a review of computational materials design tool. There are quite a few of them, so let me share my screen. Okay, so I'm sharing. Okay, so the exact title of my presentation is Computational Materials Design from Molecular Mechanics to Artificial Intelligence. So this is a brief my professional history. So I get my MS degree from Mendeleev University of Chemical Technology, Russia, PhD at Lomonosov, Moscow State University. I worked 10 years Russian, or it was Soviet Union Academy of Science. Spent 4 years in Germany, University of Erlangen-Nuremberg and Max Planck Institute of Mülheim an der Ruhr. 2 years I was research assistant, University of Florida, 6 years work at Motorola, then 9 years part-time at Arizona State University, and had short research visit Dalhousie University, Canada, Tyndall Institute in Ireland, and University of Tokyo in Japan. So, and I also have 15 years of consulting experience. So the research area which I was working is included modeling of reaction syndrome for the synthetic bacteria, our computational study of compounds of first and second rows, biologically active oligopyrroles, a computational design of advanced propellants and explosives, and computational design of electronic materials and devices. So examples I will give from my research is mostly from what has been done at Motorola today. Okay, so the general slides. How do we do research? First of all, yeah, in order, it's kind of like in scale mine, money and time. Time is money, money is time. So first, we do grant writing or trying to get something with some money to support our research. Then prior do modeling, so we do kind of analyzing the facts, so to understand what's actually we're going to do, what kind of model we need. In the phase 3, we're actually building such model. Then once you build the model, then and do the calculation, so then you need to see what's result you get and compares with the fact, and see how much you advanced with your theory in understanding the nature. In the phase 5, finally publication. So if you're publish or perish. So that's a general picture. Another general slides is about how the research has been changing over the centuries. Old times, in ancient times, so people didn't have much tools, so mostly it was just thinking, and science and philosophy were kind of the same subject. There was a lot of experimenting in medieval times, so alchemistry was one of the most popular sciences we're talking about. And modern science include a lot of very sophisticated tools which help us to see separate atoms, what molecules and materials are made of. And in general, flow is we do education, we learn something, we do the research, and finally we move to the innovations. So general computational material science. What computational material science do? So some of them work on theory development, other people do software design, and a third people do application. Actually, some people in some extent do all of the subjects, but since life is limited, so you cannot do everything perfect. So how material sciences, computational materials work? There is two major approaches. One of approaches from top down. So you start from macro scale properties, and then you start to figure out what atomic behavior or electronic behavior is correspond to these properties. Opposite approach, we call bottom-up approach. You start from some sort of atomic structure, and then you derive the properties you need and try to modify the structure in a way to get desired properties. How the interaction between the theory and experiment occur. So first of all, it's a design of materials, design of materials with desired properties. So computation help to guidance in design also reaction paths and technology. Um, in general, atomic scale knowledge of materials and their properties help to guide with all kind of experiments. Knowledge base of computational material science. In general, it's quantum mechanics, molecular mechanics and dynamics, applied mathematics, statistical method in computational science. So where you can find computational material science working. So it's an academy, universities, research center in chemistry, physics, biology, engineering. In industry, you can find the computational material scientists in pharma, chemical industry, all kind of construction even, and obviously in electronics. That's where I was working at Motorola. So in order to do the computational materials, you need computational materials too. So here I'm just showing you the screenshot from Atomic Scale Design Network web portal, which is one of my project. And I have the web page where I collected some of the software in different areas. So people who are interested to find this may visit this page, or otherwise you can find many reference on internet about various type of software too. So you can also get a lot of education also at internet about computational scientists lectures. So here I show you the picture and the title of their talks of three of my colleagues, Vladimir Mujica from Arizona State University, Dmitry Matyshov, and Steve Gutnik. So that's how you can educate yourself. Besides the books, you can also find a lot of materials, lectures on YouTube or otherwise at the internet. So there is also their material science degrees online. So here's just some example of them, which you can also get through the online education. Okay, so now let's start with a brief mentioning of the most simple way to treat the molecules. In a classical way, it's called molecular mechanics. You can also do the dynamics. So what you do, you consider atoms and molecules. Atoms in molecules are like simple subject connected with the springs. And then, so you design the potential, which is van der Waals type potential, which describe so that when you extend the bond, so you get increase of energy, or you compress the bond, you have decrease of the energy. But bottom line, it's like a springs. So advantage of this simple molecular mechanics that it's very computationally efficient. You can calculate very large system, but the price is that you cannot describe in this way real quantum mechanical phenomena. Where the applications can be for these tools. First of all, it's a very large system like polymer, protein, DNA, amorphous materials. Also, there is a lot of use of the molecular mechanics in education, just kind of like to show how it can work in principle. For example, in peptides, you can study the conformation, same for polymers. You can design the glass structure. So a lot of structure optimization methods are used in combination with molecular mechanics. It's simulated annealings, Monte Carlo, and various kind of evolutionary algorithms. Yeah, there is a few example of here. There are the references of few papers of samples of computational design of biomolecules. Okay, so now we move to our computational methods which use quantum mechanics. So the foundation of this is the so-called Hartree-Fock theory and density functional method. The Hartree-Fock theory is based on approximate solution of their of the Schrödinger equations, where the wave function is defined as a determinant based an interaction based on independent electrons. Approximation which are made in this case are so-called Born-Oppenheimer approximation and non-relativistic, but there is also relativistic method. So we use infinite basis set. Wave function is a single Slater determinant, but extension of is multi-determinant method, and what's so-called a mean field approximation. Advantage of quantum mechanical method is that you get real nature of quantum mechanical nature of molecules, and it is considered explicitly. Always disadvantage that it is uh, that's require much higher computational cost and it's more complex calculation. And the more accurate you want to be, the price is that you need more computational power. So the quantum mechanical tool set include various type of approximate solution for Hunter-Fock equations. They were very popular about 30 years ago. They based on neglection differential overlap. But now they're used more in education, and some use is in organic chemistry for big molecules, but are density functional methods of different kind of, they kind of and particularly with increasing computer power, they kind of pushing out the use for an NDDO type approximation. And obviously, if you need their very high accuracy, then you have to need very sophisticated methods such as couple cluster or CAS-SCF method. So where this quantum methods applied? So in many different type of applications, such as reaction in liquid, for example, chemical deposition, catalysis, and so on. So in fact, the qualitative analysis of electron distribution is still remain the tool. And when you analyze their, in particular in qualitative analysis of reactions or structure, that means used in a combination of their quantitative calculation, because it gives some sort of the basis of understanding of the nature. In particular, for example, analysis of what's called HOMO and LUMO, highest occupied molecular orbitals, and lowest unoccupied molecular orbitals. So in organic chemistry, it's, for example, it is to find the path for electrophilic substitution, nucleophilic substitution, and so on. Here I want to give one interesting example of interplay of theory and experiments. There SN2 reaction are very popular in organic chemistry, where a nucleophile is one nucleophile is exchanging another one at the carbon atom. So there is a classical the classical barrier for reaction in solutions is described on the left side here. So there is a initial state, there is final state, and there is barrier. Okay, so when the first quantum calculation of this reaction started, they obviously use only the molecules, just molecules themselves without solvent. And the calculation showed that there is almost no barriers, and there is two energy gaps, sort of, on both sides of reaction, which is on a reactant side and on a product side. So this led to kind of suspicion that something wrong with the theory, until there are the experimentally started to study the reaction of this kind in a gas phase. And in this case they're perfect are perfect agreement between the theory and experiments were found. However, and also on another side, when the theoretical chemists are started to include their solvent model in their calculation, they also reproduced the results of for SN2 reaction in a solution. So this is kind of an interesting interplace where first there is no how to say, there is suspicion that something wrong with the theory, but once the theory include all their X or more or less model more properly, in this case, including solvent into calculation. So there is better agreement or best agreement. And also when they experiment in some way, they also are more close to what the theory is showing. In this case, initially it was a reaction in a gas phase. So there is a lot of flavors of density functional theory, which in some sort may be considered also as semi-empirical because, well, it just depends on, so some people would say it's ab initio, some people would say, yeah, there is certain empiricity in density functional theory because you have to somehow approximate the exchange correlation potential, and there is a lot of flavors of it depending on what you want to describe best. So initial concherm approximation was just for for describing their time-independent phenomena. However, if you need to describe time-dependent phenomena, something like interaction of molecules or solid states with electric, with in optical or magnetic phenomena, where their potential is changing in time. So you need another version of the theory of density functional, which called time-dependent density functional theory. In some approximation of it, which is called linear response time-dependent DFT. So you may get a good approximation of excitation energy, which are described as the pole of linear response function. Another version of density functional theory I'd call finite temperature Concham DFT is designed for the purpose of describing the behavior of molecule at a very high temperature, and also to get such properties as thermal conductivity, adsorption coefficient, electric conductivity, and reflectivity. So now I am kind of going a few examples from my own research, which is mostly done at Motorola. So and here just show there some kind of logo of two most popular software tool for solid state called WASP program and Siesta. WASP is used plane wave basis, and Siesta is using local orbital. So where you can apply their methods for solid state physics, solid state density functional. So it can be phenomena such as deposition, defect formation in device or design or at atomic scale. So just a few examples from my own research. This is picture show our study of defect generation at silicon oxide interface. So we were trying to figure out which type of defect has high or corresponding low energy. We also doing design of modeling of lanthanum aluminum oxide interface on materials or layers on silicon interface in order to assist with a technique of deposition design to see which type of interface has a lower energy. Here's another example is silicon oxide interfaces, which is major element for transistors. So in our study, we done research or calculation of silicon oxide interface with different type of silicon surface 100, 111, and 110. One more example, have been doing the study of various zirconium silicon oxide polymer. Only two of them are known in the nature, so-called zircon and rhydite. So in our study, we found six higher density crystal structure with a different type of arrangement of atoms, and also six low density crystal structure. Where this structure can be found, the higher energy structure can be found at a very high pressures, for something like, for example, in the core of Earth, or in space, and low density structure might appear at the deposition. So this picture is kind of showing of interplay of different methods. So depending on the scale you want to describe, we use different methods with kind of more and more approximation. Like at atom level, at low nanoscale level, you can use quantum mechanics and quantum dynamics. When the system increase, you have to switch to molecular dynamics. At even more kind of at the higher scale, like mesoscale, so you have to kind of go already to Monte Carlo type methods, because the dynamics becoming is more expensive. And finally, at a scale like centimeters or millimeters, sorry, we're using continuum type of models. So Monte Carlo simulation is based on the Metropolis algorithm, is becoming more and more popular, and actually very popular, is sort of a less expensive alternative to our dynamics method. And we have been using it in modeling, in the deposition, and in design devices. So this is kind of our brief, I would say, management type structure, which we show to manager what we actually do in computational material science and device design electronic industry. So the input will be coming from experimental data, process data, and materials device data. And our model was for different type of application, was reaction scale model, atomic scale deposition model, and atomic scale device. And that corresponding outputs were deposition rate, film type uniformity, and assistance in reaction and process design. For the process, we were doing the film and interface outcome from our deposition modeling. Also structure and stability in a system of process design. As far as the properties, so it was different electric properties and reliability type outcome. So here's a general scheme of our modeling flow, starting from quantum mechanics, moving toward kinetics calculation, and then modeling the CVD type reactors. And the goals was to design a new gate oxide, something like zirconium oxide and hafnium oxide type materials. So here's just to show our integrated kinetic Monte Carlo method approach in combination with quantum chemistry calculation. So we did density function cluster calculation in our periodical study. Then derived for parameter for kinetic calculation. Did molecular dynamics simulation for conformation and surface relaxation, and also use a kinetic Monte Carlo simulation for design of interface and film growth. So this is just an example of our cluster type calculation in order to derive the energy of initial final stage of our of elementary reaction, in this case for zirconium oxide deposition. This helps us to design the kinetics data, which then use in sort of approximation for lattice kinetic Monte Carlo model overall deposition, which resulted to modeling the initial state of the zirconium oxide deposition on silicon. So the next step was to design our corresponding gate stack and they calculate the electric properties such as total potential and leakage current. So they're on the macro scale. So we use simplified parameters or general parameters derived from calculation into their modeling of particular plug flow reaction for LD type deposition. So as a byproduct of our work, so we managed to design their commercial quality type software, which called Chimera. It's now used by our Russian partners in Moscow. And it's allowed to do the quantum calculation and insert the input from quantum chemistry into the chemical kinetic study and then toward the reactor modeling. So this is just showing briefly their windows of the software. So next set of tools, cheminformatics. Chemical information, cheminformation or chemical information, it's application of data science in chemistry and material science. That definition actually was brought by Brown in 1998. So it's relatively new science. Its basic paradigm is somewhat different from what we use in atomic scale quantum chemistry, for example. So we start basic paradigm from quantum chemistry. We start from wave particles dualism. Molecular mechanics use the atomic structure, and chemical intervention use what is called chemical space. So basic model in quantum chemistry, it's electron and nucleus. In molecular mechanics, in atoms and bonds. And cheminformation, it's a so-called molecular graph and in descriptor vectors. So what is the basic theory? In quantum chemistry, it's Schrodinger equation. Molecular mechanics, it's classical and statistical mechanics. And chemical information use mostly is graph theory and statistical based learning. So it just kind of formal diagram I get from my colleagues, Alexander Warnek, who is professor in Stradbroke University. So the quantum mechanics, what use so-called deductive learning. So we start from structures and then deduct knowledge about their the materials. In chemical information, it's kind of like an opposite. It's a top-down approach. So it starts from large amount of data about materials properties in order to figure out which specific of molecular structure or material structure in general provide these properties and how to modify the structure later on in order to get the desired property or improve the properties. So this is just a diagram showing what is chemical space paradigm. So in chemical space paradigm, so you have several dimensions which describe various properties, and it's based on graphs. So you design you describe the graph or structure of molecules, and each of them and get the descriptor type space where you look for optimizing certain properties. So this is again, so example from my colleague Alexander Varag in designing chemical space for in order to study their their structure of lutetium based binder in order to find the binder which is the best or for this type of ions. So in fact, from this point of view, the first chemical information expert was actually Mendeleev, because he used the information about existing elements in order to predict existence of non-existent elements. So in some way, he's using what is now called chemical informatic paradigms. So there is a lot of books on chemical informatics actually nowadays. So if you want to learn something about it, there is really a lot of materials on this topic. So next flavor of chemical information, it's called bioinformatics, and it's used approach which is called computer-aided drug design. So it's the main property is the main goal here. It's actually to accelerate the study of potential candidate for new drugs. So it identified they identify the most promising materials and help with studying their properties and predicting what could be the lead materials in order to reduce the number of experiments. So what is a computer-aided drug design toolkit? So what they use? First of all, they use virtual screening of commercially available database, which are very numerous. Then they use 3D model, something like protein and potential drug. Calculation of molecular dynamic simulation can find how these potential drugs are binded to biological materials. Also in this case, for screening and for correlation, a lot of data are used aside, such as like an absorption, distribution in the bodies, and the metabolism. Based on all of this information, they designed the library, and data mining and machine learning help with design the drugs. So this slide, again from my colleague Alexander Varnik, show there what is called a virtual screening funnel. So you start from the big data, you filter them by selecting what you really need and what is might be wrong. Something like, for example, you eliminate materials which are toxic, those which would be insoluble in, for example, in our body, and so on and so forth. And eventually you come with small set of materials which then you study in detail computation. And you start from very big sets of millions of molecules and end up in selection of maybe 10 or 100 molecules in order to, and then you already have to move to experimental part. So again, so this is just one of the slides showing some work in the design of pharmacophore and protein docking modeling. This is another example from another colleague, Dmitry Kiriev, who actually give lecture at our conference, and I invite you to take a look at his lecture about their drug design success. They already found one, and actually they even license it. And that's a very interesting example. So this is example from their work. Recently, more and more what is called nowadays artificial intelligence methods is being used in material science. One of them are based on what called evolutionary algorithms. So the evolutionary algorithm assume that you start from certain selection or randomly selection or some initial selections of material structures, and then you modify them and see the outcome. And then step by step, you select the property which is most desired. For example, when you find the global minimum of the structure, so um, your mutation would mean change in the positions of atom in the molecules, and you do it extensively in order to find the global minimum. So here is just a few examples of using genetical algorithm application in material science. So here there is a reference to this paper, and so you can look in there and my presentation in order to see this reference, and if you want to see exactly this sample. So one of the example include design of self-assembling materials, binary alloys, optimizing nanoparticle catalysis, and there is also a good review on application of used genetic algorithm in computational chemistry. It's published in Computational Method and Material Science in 2013. Another type of artificial intelligence methods called artificial neural networks. So, and these methods also becoming very popular. So they use a training set of data in order to adjust the artificial neural network to provide the desired outcome. Once you design this, once you use this training set, then you use it in order to predict the properties, and this is actually an iterative approach. So below is a few examples where the artificial neural network has been used. So it was, for example, in surface reaction, in search of new catalysis, and also a lot is been used in drug design. Next, a few slides, 4 slides. There is some example of use of artificial intelligence method in search for new materials in energy. In this case, this is example for DFT study of dye-synthesized solar cells. This method has been used in computational screening of organic photovoltaics, and also they used broad network of IBM World Computing Grid, which is kind of an interesting example. That was done in Harvard Clean Energy Project. So in lithium battery electrolyte screening also was quite an extensive study. Another example is use of artificial intelligence in search of materials which reduce the amount of platinum used in a fuel cell. So this is also a very interesting example. So this is just some kind of brief overview of various methods, so which I was trying to do in a very short time. So that was a little bit kind of more bit superficial, just to show what the broad set of computational materials being used. Thank you very much for your attention.